I uncovered a fraud worth $4 billion. There's an FBI investigation, lawsuits, and a lot of influencers.
I still have, unfortunately, the worst coin that ever existed, SafeMoon.
This is the story of SafeMoon, a crypto coin that millions of people hold, and some believe is here to change the world.
It's more than just talking about a store of value, which wasn't the focus. It's more about building the future and building a safe future and bringing it now.
But what if they're wrong? I've been working with a small team to investigate SafeMoon for almost a year now, and what we've uncovered is shocking. Secret payments.
I believe he got a payoff and went away.
Deleted evidence.
It's a true FBI operation here, redacted everything.
And hundreds of millions of dollars that appears to have been stolen, provably, on the blockchain. Welcome to the $10 million studio. I'm your host, CoffeeZilla. Let's get into it.
Are you sure this is smart? I mean, this isn't the small fries you used to go after.
Yeah, I know.
This is a billion-dollar company.
I know.
You're accusing some of these people of actual crimes.
Look, I know.
Do you? Do you know? There's risks to messing with money like this. This isn't a game anymore.
Okay, fine. If you really think it's so irresponsible of me, how about we flip for it? Heads, I go through with the video. Tails, I don't. This is a story of greed, bad financial decisions, and somehow Gambian wind farms. The creators of SafeMoon are now being sued and investigated by the FBI, but before we get to that, we have to discuss, how did this all start? Who creates coins like SafeMoon? Was it a crypto mastermind like Soulja Boy or Gary Vee? No. It turns out it was a guy who believes in Q. Yes, that Q. His name is Kyle, and very little is known about him other than he distrusts the government and thinks they're a bunch of criminals, which, I don't know, fair enough, I guess, but Kyle's not going to complain about it like most people. And I think he decided at some point, if you can't beat him, you might as well join him. And he decides getting into crypto is the perfect way to start redistributing some of that wealth back to himself. And that's when he starts making a bunch of coins. Coins like Give Me Your Money token. Really classy stuff, you know. But for some reason, this really wasn't working out for him until Kyle found something called B token. Now, when Kyle invested in B token, he liked that it had a special property to it, a 5% tax on every transaction, which was then split into two parts. 3% was added back to the liquidity pool, and 2% was distributed to all the holders of B, which just encouraged people not to sell. You just held and made money. And Kyle liked this idea a lot, which is why soon after he copied the code and launched it himself, but with a few changes. He raised the tax to 10%, and he changed the name to something a lot more catchy. He called it SafeMoon. And he promised everyone from the beginning, no rug is possible. Join us on our journey safely to the moon. Now, just so you understand, in the world of meme coins, SafeMoon basically translates to easy money, safe money. It's like setting the world's most delicious cheese on the world's most obvious trap, which is why, of course, everyone fell for it. Look, I appreciate your concern, but somebody has to do this. There are literally millions of people who are invested in SafeMoon.
And those millions are gonna hate you for it. You think anyone who is in SafeMoon is gonna be grateful for your story? They're gonna be pissed, Coffee. And not at the people who lied to them, but at you for telling them the truth. And the probability of you coming out ahead is unlikely. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But you're gonna do it anyways.
Yeah.
You humans are so confusing.
SafeMoon immediately went viral because of the promise of safe, easy money, and Kyle pretty clearly wasn't ready for it. People who knew him say Kyle kind of didn't think this stupid plan would actually work.
I'm James. I was a senior moderator for SafeMoon. Kyle told me that he had no idea SafeMoon was going to explode like it did. His expectation was that he would be in and out.
That's right. He was expecting to be in and out, and I only can imagine how he probably thought to himself, how can people be falling for this? But clearly they were, and Kyle decided he may need to hire some people at this point to help him out.
But when it did take off, he wasn't prepared. He had to bring in people really fast.
And he did. Kyle hired a bunch of people, almost as unqualified as himself. There's a guy, Thomas Smith, who became the lead developer. He's a grown man who insists everyone call him Papa.
I'm your Papa. I'm the lead dev here.
Now, after Papa, a guy named John Caroni is brought on as the CEO of SafeMoon. And he turns out to be the guy in the group project that sort of everyone ends up hating.
Their argument had always been, Oh, we brought John on in, the heat of the moment because we needed to. It was an emergency. We're so sorry for bringing him in, and he ruined the project.
There's also a bunch of people hired at this time that you're not going to need to know till later, so we're just going to ignore them for now, but here they are on screen. This was just all thrown together in the heat of the moment. Call it what you want. The incompetent Avengers, the League of Extraordinarily Stupid Gentlemen. Either way, it kind of worked in their favor for the following reason.
It is hard to tell when SafeMoon is malicious and when it is stupid. There just is a problem with that, and there's reasons for that, which we can get into later.
You see, that's Bootsy, one of the researchers I worked with, and you can tell he's sort of been hit by this smokescreen of stupidity that SafeMoon has created. Like, here's a guy who's been researching SafeMoon for 11 months alongside Strider and myself, and we're all still baffled. People just can't figure out how something this dumb made this much money.
So we have a valuation of around $3 to $4 billion, and we did this all in 9 months.
So it almost helped them in a way how dumb it was. And people were buying like crazy because who doesn't want easy, safe money? And you know who actually loves easy, safe money more than anyone? Influencers.
There you go. Jeremy B.
This is all in April 2021. That's when SafeMoon really exploded in popularity. They had billboards across the nation. They had the biggest influencers talking about them. Not that it was free of criticism.
Unfortunately, this is a giant Ponzi scheme.
Those are just the haters that needed to be destroyed by the SafeMoon army. That, by the way, is the name SafeMooners gave themselves. And they declared war on the haters. Here's one of many of these SafeMoon soldiers.
We are the SafeMoon army. And I am SafeMoon Soldier. I didn't get this tattoo for no damn reason. Nobody will ever silence me with threats or threaten my money.
You know, it's almost embarrassing to watch a grown man defend a token that was designed to rob him of his money. But maybe it's time to talk about just that, how SafeMoon was designed. We're going to talk about how SafeMoon was supposed to be so safe. Because that's really the point of all this, isn't it? Your money is supposed to be safe. And that idea came from this claim about a locked liquidity pool. But what does that mean? In DeFi, the way you trade tokens is with something called an LP, liquidity pool. Every pool basically has two different currencies, and the point of it is to provide buyers and sellers a way to trade without regular market makers like Wall Street has. In a liquidity pool, the way it works is the ratio of your two assets determines the price. For example, one liquidity pool might hold 5,000 SafeMoon and 1,000 BNB paired together, and the price is just the ratio of these assets, so 5 to 1 in this case. And I can trade on either side of it. I can sell SafeMoon by putting SafeMoon into the pool and getting BNB out at that ratio, or I can buy SafeMoon by putting BNB into it. And as people buy and sell, this ratio shifts and the price changes automatically. Now, the more liquidity you have, the bigger the pool is, the better, because price stabilizes. And I can feel you all collectively yawning at this point, so we're going to move on before we put anyone to sleep. But just know the key innovation of SafeMoon was this idea that every time someone trades, you just take 5% of it as a tax and put it into the liquidity pool and lock that money up so SafeMoon, the company, can't touch it. That way, you know, as an investor, you can always trade SafeMoon for a fair price. This is how you avoid the scam of how tokens commonly get rug pulled, where suddenly the price or liquidity pool of a project would collapse, which happened all the time in DeFi with cases like this.
So the market cap is $2.168 trillion. And now the market, it went to zero. Yeah!
The whole pitch of SafeMoon is basically, look, rug pulls like that, that's impossible with SafeMoon because the money's locked up. It's right there in the README. It's auto-magically locked up. Or wait, was it auto-locking? Because I kind of read that too. Oh, that's probably the same thing. Unless it wasn't locked at all. Uh-oh, this is confusing. SafeMoon appears to be contradicting itself. Maybe we should go to the CEO of SafeMoon so he can explain it once and for all.
So the LP lock is automated, not automatic. Automated and automatic are not the same thing.
That didn't help. Well, maybe we go to the source code that they copied from B token and figure out what's really going on here. Surely B token wasn't a rug pull.
So we have this B token code, and B was kind of a smaller rug pull.
Oh, well, that's even worse. How are we getting out of this one, fellas?
Our big difference, you're going to find that we're never going to rug.
Uh-oh, I think we're looking at a pinky promise protocol here, fellas. But if B token could rug pull, that means the funds in SafeMoon are also not locked up and are also not really safe. So that was kind of a huge lie. But surely this guy has the best of intentions and won't have any skeletons come out of his closet later and incriminate him, I said, knowing that I'm about to play a clip.
Let's not pretend why we're here. Well, this ideological, like, let's save the rockets thing. This is about money.
Oh, we're in a bit of trouble here, aren't we? Look, guys, I'm not against money, right? I'm American, so I like money as much as the next guy, as long as the next guy isn't Jake Paul. But, you know, this just doesn't seem like a good deal at this point, especially when the founder created a token called Give Me Your Money. But I get it. Look, that's just my opinion, right? We need evidence now. And so that's when I started looking at the blockchain. I started collecting all of SafeMoon's wallets and identifying them. And when I did, I found that Kyle had already been rug pulling SafeMoon since it started, just more slowly than the B token guys. See, on March 5th, this shows up on the blockchain as the function remove liquidity, which of course they said was impossible. And the first time they took from the cookie jar, it wasn't for much, only $14,000 was taken. But it added up over time, and I worked with a blockchain researcher to find out just how much Kyle took.
The total amount of SafeMoon that came into Kyle's wallet was over 164 trillion tokens. Fast forward to mid-September to mid-December, this grossed him just under 10.3 million.
Wow, that's a lot of money for a token that was never going to rug pull. And maybe that's why the FUD just seemed like it wasn't stopping. SafeMoon may have been booming from influencers, but they were suffering from a major PR problem known as evidence. And this is when a Twitter account called War on Rugs first appeared, who started warning people that, quote, the likelihood of losing all funds was absolute with SafeMoon. Now, this was a pretty epic ownage of facts and logic from War on Rugs here, and it seemed like SafeMoon was on the ropes right up until War on Rugs decided to scam people himself with his own rug pull, to which, yeah, the only response is, like, how? The guy calling out scams decided to scam people himself, which, as you guys know, I would never do to you, Pump the Stockzilla. And basically, SafeMoon was like, aha, well, that guy's a scammer, so are we cool now, everyone? And everyone was kind of like, I guess we'll forget about it all.
He both seemed to have pointed something out pretty important about SafeMoon, but then he also turned out to be a real piece of shit.
And after War on Rugs, the SafeMoon army just really kind of rallied against anti-scammers, and they made it their mission to expose the exposers with people like this.
This channel will be dedicated to exposing opportunists and shillers of FUD. FUD, for those that are new to the term, stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. My mission is to analyze and expose those that use FUD to manipulate you for their own personal gain.
Now I know what you're thinking. With Rambo over here going SEAL Team 6 and all the haters, SafeMoon must be doing pretty well. And it's true, they decided it was a good time to clear up all the FUD once and for all with a smart contract audit.
Today, the SafeMoon audit just dropped on our heads.
So that happened, except the auditors were like, yeah, your code kind of sucks, and there are major vulnerabilities. My favorite quote is that they said mishandling it can have devastating consequences to the project, to which SafeMoon was like, oh, well, you don't have to worry about that, because if we took your money, we'd get sued and go to jail. Now, of course, within a year of that, they would be sued and investigated by the FBI, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. SafeMoon, even for all its hype, just really still had problems internally. Like, people are leaving the company. Everything is kind of a mess. And maybe that's why at some point the ownership of SafeMoon was transferred over to Papa. And just so you guys understand, the SafeMoon community just like worshiped this guy. Here's an example. This guy says, Papa's literally a genius. XRP offered him $2 million to work with them, and he denied it. Any blockchain project would die to have Papa on their team, and Papa says, like, truth. Now, later, the XRP team would reply that they had no idea who Papa was and had never heard of them. But the point is, the SafeMoon people thought Papa was the reincarnation of Satoshi Nakamoto, and that he was going to usher SafeMoon into a golden age of prosperity. And now, did that happen? No. In reality, Papa just stole more money, like Kyle did, except he was a bit craftier about it, I guess. Like when Kyle stole money, he just kind of took from the liquidity pool, but Papa was different. He had a story about it. He justified himself by saying he wasn't rug pulling liquidity, he was moving the funds in a fund migration from a version 1 liquidity pool to a version 2. And as they told it, it was for the people's benefit. In fact, every time Papa migrated these funds, he would send the same memes every time. Boom. But behind all the boomer memes, not all the money made its way over, and you might not be surprised to find out that some of it found its way into Papa's pockets. We first find a hint of this on May 12th when he says, "I migrated the LP in a way I figured everyone would love." But here's what actually happened. I'm going to visualize what Papa should have done versus what he actually did. What was supposed to happen in a migration is that he would move the BNB SafeMoon pair from V1 to V2. Simple, right? Instead, Papa did something different. He took the BNB pair from V1, but kept the SafeMoon, and he only put the BNB into the V2 pool with a purchase of SafeMoon, meaning Papa got more SafeMoon from the V2 contract as well. Now, on the surface, this appeared to cause the price to spike because a huge purchase order was just made. But in reality, Papa was keeping gigantic amounts of SafeMoon that he could later sell for a personal profit. And the value of SafeMoon overall was falling. Once again, me and some researchers calculated how much in dollars Papa took, and here's what we found.
So Thomas withdrew liquidity 18 different times. He actually held on to $143 million worth of liquidity. The sum of outgoing SafeMoon transactions was about $100 million. Of that $100 million, $58.9 million went to Bitmart, and $8.1 million went to other undisclosed wallets.
I feel like I need to remind everyone, this is the same guy who also said this.
Our big difference, you're going to find that we're never going to rug.
So I guess turns out that was a big lie, and the money wasn't safe after all. But as with all things SafeMoon, things are about to get much worse. You have to understand, SafeMoon at this point was under a lot of stress, and the team was kind of fracturing internally. Caroni in particular was the most hated on the team. People didn't like how he wanted to run things. And here's one of SafeMoon's own developers, Hank Wyatt, blaming him for a lot of SafeMoon's problems.
That was an organized FUD attack. That was only a small amount of why the red candles were happening. John wouldn't let us lock up $250 million in liquidity. That's why all the FUD was happening. And when we asked him, hey, we don't need this money, we shouldn't touch it, and he said, oh, no, but we can still use some of it, and he wanted to run the LP. Yeah, it can lick my whole balls.
Now I know what you're thinking. I probably could have cut that last part of the call and you still would have gotten the gist.
It can lick my whole balls.
But, I really think you have to hear these people describe John Caroni in its full glory to understand just how hated this guy was.
There's like no substance of a human there anymore. He's just a fucking dick.
He's just a...
John's a fucking monster and does not care about his employees whatsoever.
This is going to sound really up, and I apologize in advance. The only time I like John is when he's depressed.
See, now you get the picture. Basically, no one liked Caroni, and this rift only escalated with Operation Phoenix.
First signs of this was when John started talking about Project Phoenix, which he then changed to Project Phoenix because he spelled it wrong and refused to admit that he just made a spelling error, and I have no idea why, but it will haunt me to the end of my life because he literally could have just switched it, and instead he is running with it to this day.
We're fast approaching our full unveil of Operation Phoenix.
But he starts talking about Project Phoenix. The rest of the team doesn't talk about it at all, which didn't seem like much at the time until later on when we get the leaked audio.
Can you explain what the Operation Phoenix is?
Nobody can explain what Operation Phoenix is, including John.
Operation Phoenix is a little bit of a journey, but it's mainly a bunch of different complex things coming together to create an evolution.
He has a lot of claims of what it can be, or what it could be. It started out as banking the unbanked in Africa, the most overused phrase by anyone who has a lot of money in the crypto space. Talked about how it was going to be utilized as a currency in the Gambia. Then it became about windmills. and clean energy, then it became about burning tokens with those windmills somehow. The phrase "every turn a burn" became a thing for a while. Nanotechnology was used at one point, according to them. I can't go any farther than that. Truly, I'll just keep rambling about it. It's a gobbledygook. It makes no sense.
So to summarize, John is off doing whatever Project Phoenix is, and he wants to use the SafeMoon war chest to fund it. Meanwhile, the core team kind of hates John, they resent him, but they can't kick him out because he's the CEO. So instead, they decide to start a new project. They call it Piggy Bank Token.
So the idea of Piggy appeared to just be their next attempt to do whatever it is the team wanted to do without John. That was another example of the rift that seemed to have been created.
Now, Piggy would turn out to be a big failure in the months ahead, but the anti-Coroni team decided they weren't going to leave SafeMoon quietly. Many of them wanted their cut of the pie. Hank Wyatt, for instance, wanted a $3 million severance package.
His best interest is to give me my $3 million severance package.
His big plan was to use his ownership over SafeMoon's various social platforms as leverage.
Kind of forcing his hand on that one, because I also own the Twitter.
But this bad attempt at blackmail sort of backfired on Hank when this audio call leaked, and Hank was basically just kicked out immediately. The whole team would eventually be replaced as well, as Coroni realized what had happened with Piggy. But I started to wonder, was it just Hank looking for a payout? Do you think Thomas, Kyle, these guys basically got paid off to not become like permanent enemies of SafeMoon?
I believe that Kyle, we had a discussion, they were in legal discussions with their lawyers about suing SafeMoon to regain control. Thomas said that he'll honor whatever Kyle agrees to. One of the things that they were going to ask for was to be paid to go away, essentially. I'll sue you for all this fraud and all these things, and you will very possibly have criminal charges, and then he gets a payoff. I believe he got a payoff and went away, because it just disappeared. He never said a word to us about what happened.
Well, those are quite the allegations, but in order to understand whether they're credible, we need to start talking about John Coroni.
All right, so hey, I'm John. I'm the CEO of SafeMoon.
We already know most people didn't like him, but we're going to take our own look at him and decide for ourselves. Coroni's past is mostly military. He worked for the Department of Defense, and his parents are both former CIA, and it's clear from the beginning that he wanted to run a much different SafeMoon than the other guys. He saw himself as something of a tech visionary, and he saw SafeMoon as the vehicle for that. He said SafeMoon was a technology company.
We're a 9-month-old blockchain innovation company, a tech company.
They were going to build products like a crypto wallet and, yes, Gambian wind farms. And it wasn't until September 2nd that Coroni would truly get his chance to fulfill this vision. He was already CEO, but a lot of people were struggling with him for power and for influence. But after the piggy bank token disaster, Coroni really got the chance to clean house. And he was about to get his chance in the driver's seat. Now, when most people talk about visionaries, you think of Elon Musk or Steve Jobs. But everyone forgets that 99% of visionaries are just all talk.
First they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
And Coroni basically fits this second model. He talks a big game, but he kind of lacks the track record. Let's start with the Gambian wind farms. Remember that this is that Project Phoenix thing we heard so much about.
Welcome SafeMoon Army and the wider tech audience to your Operation Phoenix reveal. Let's start with wind. We've given you a lot of teasers regarding the wind turbines, but here are the details. The use of wind power has proven viable, and just as small plane wings have evolved over the years, so can the physical designs of turbines.
Now wait a second. I know what you're thinking. That wind turbine, it looks pretty good actually. And that's because it's someone else's wind turbine. A company called Symptive made it. Here's the actual CEO.
This is Nemoy, a small-scale wind turbine to generate simple, affordable, and reliable wind energy.
Now, I don't know about you, but the fact that SafeMoon didn't build the technology in their tech demo seems like a bit of an issue.
But here at SafeMoon, an issue is just an excuse to innovate.
So what was that innovation? Well, if you can get past PhD level word salad, basically they put little dots on the windmill and claim to make it more efficient, which gonna need to see some evidence for that one, fellas. And SafeMoon's other technologies aren't much better. SafeMoon launched their own crypto wallet, which was supposed to replace the popular Trust Wallet app. The only issue is...
It seems to be a one-to-one copy of the Trust Wallet. but now it has the SafeMoon logo on it and has the SafeMoon colors.
And all of this is right in line with SafeMoon's business practices from the very beginning, when they took B token, renamed it, and called it a big innovation. Or, sorry, they called it an evolution.
SafeMoon is the evolution. SafeMoon is the evolution.
Create an evolution.
And you have to be willing to evolve.
But now that we've talked about SafeMoon's contributions to technology, we need to talk about the one thing they did that does seem original, and that's the V2 contract of SafeMoon. See, SafeMoon was still getting flack for being the clone of a rug pull, so they decided they were going to upgrade it. Now, mind you, this is different from like the V2 liquidity pool we talked about Papa migrating to. This is an actual upgrade of the token itself. Unsurprisingly, this upgrade would turn out to be a total disaster. The big differences for version 2 were really the changed fees. Instead of a 10% tax split two ways, there were now 4 different uses of the fees, as well as a switch to a proxy contract. But the big question became, how do you get everyone to switch over to this V2 token? They didn't want to split their community, so they decided to force people to switch using an 100% tax. What could go wrong?
The big one is regarding the 100% tax. Yeah, so basically we were shutting down V1.
So yes, they raised their tax of SafeMoon from 10% to 100% in an attempt to make the V1 token useless and force everyone to migrate their tokens over to V2 where it's actually usable. The problem, of course, is that a lot of people who invest in SafeMoon aren't tech savvy, and when you send money on SafeMoon with this 100% tax, which you can do, you get completely wiped out.
Essentially, if you tried to do anything but migrate your tokens to V2, you would lose all of your tokens.
Where to go? Hey, newsflash, SafeMoon and anybody else out there. It shouldn't be that complicated.
Now, it turns out you can actually calculate how much people lost in this SafeMoon V1 100% tax thing, and here's what we found.
So the 100% tax was implemented on December 29th. After summing up the incoming SafeMoon and BNB and its historical value, the total losses added up to $102 million.
Wow, $100 million. And that money, it didn't go nowhere. These lost tokens, they went to the liquidity pool. And we know who controls that, John Caroni. Now, it's worth saying that some in SafeMoon said that they were going to pay people back for these losses. This guy, the FUD Hound, who you saw earlier, real name Ryan, he said that they were going to refund people affected by V1 taxes. 2 weeks later, Ryan would resign or get fired, depending on who you believed. Ryan said he felt forced to follow his code of ethics. Caroni said he was fired for breaching confidentiality. Maybe he just said a little too much. But I'm sure losing one of your community figureheads isn't that ominous. I'm sure everything's fine, guys, right? Honestly, this is where SafeMoon really goes from like kind of a disaster to full on everything's falling apart. So it's going to feel like we're jumping around at times, and I apologize for that. In fact, I actually forgot to mention, we kind of skipped by the fact that at this point, the FBI had actually started investigating SafeMoon. So, you know, there's that.
Hank was visited by the FBI at one point, asked about all of us.
I guess it says something when an FBI investigation is a side item that you're like, oh yeah, did I mention that? And not only that, things got worse, of course, because calls leaked of former SafeMoon members talking about deleting evidence in case of an FBI investigation.
You also got to be careful because if they believe that you deleted it out of intent to, hide evidence.
No, if you're deleting it before being subpoenaed, you're not deleting any evidence of anything. You're just deleting your messages.
It's a true FBI operation here, redacted everything.
The strategy seemed to be, delete evidence before they tell us not to delete evidence, which we'll see how that works out for them. Although we may not have to wait that long because soon after this, a class action lawsuit was filed against SafeMoon. The creators of SafeMoon and all the influencers who promoted it were all accused of pumping and dumping the coin. And frankly, when you look at the 97 pages of evidence, it does seem pretty overwhelming. Like I said, at this point, things were just falling apart. And while Caroni would usually use this time to pivot to some new harebrained scheme he had cooked up, his interviews started to go a little differently.
There were a group of people who accused SafeMoon of false and misleading statements and not having the liquidity behind the currency. Are you talking to your community? Or are you just hoping they all go away?
Yikes, that's probably not how he thought that was going to go. Now, Caroni gives the stock response, of course.
Again, we won't comment on an ongoing case, but SafeMoon will continue mission, will continue moving forward.
But you have to wonder what their play is here. SafeMoon is down 90%, and almost everyone has abandoned ship.
I still have, unfortunately, the worst coin that ever existed, SafeMoon. I came on this show. I bought $40,000 of it, and I now have 2,000 left. So,
and at this point, John Caroni is really sort of the last one standing. He's the last one left, and I'm sure the most relevant question many people have at this point is like this. Okay, look, Kyle took money, we get it. Papa took money, fine. The V2 robbed people of millions of dollars, okay, maybe they'll one day pay that back. Caroni sucks as a boss, fine. They're getting sued, okay. Actually, none of this is okay. But the question is Caroni actively profiting from SafeMoon the way Kyle and Papa did? Is he misappropriating the LP? As I'm writing this is still the sentiment in SafeMoon's Discord. These people still believe the great John Caroni would never do anything sketchy. Quote, I can't imagine him doing anything unethical with the pool of money. So now we're going to shift gears and take a look at that. Is Caroni the hero who kicked out all the bad apples? Is he an out-of-touch visionary who bites off more than he can chew? Or is he something else? As I started my investigation, the first thing I realized with Caroni is that he behaves differently than Kyle and Papa. He doesn't move liquidity around as much, but it's clear he's getting the money from somewhere. After all, he claims SafeMoon had 90 employees. So where did the money come from to pay for all these people? Naturally, I asked around.
They're paid to be on Bitmart.
All right, according to Ginger, Bitmart is the source of new funds, allegedly. Bitmart, by the way, is an exchange like Coinbase, and they were one of the first to list SafeMoon on their exchange. But the answer you just heard, that SafeMoon is being paid to list on Bitmart, didn't sound right to me. So I asked Bitmart via email, and they replied that they weren't paying SafeMoon. It was the other way around. Quote, SafeMoon paid Bitmart to be listed. So then the question is, how is SafeMoon making millions from Bitmart? Because we know they are. Recently, an employee came forward anonymously and told me that after SafeMoon signed the Bitmart deal, quote, John said to us that he was going to put us all in a new tax bracket, although this person says they never saw any of that money. So again, the question is not if SafeMoon was making tons of money, but how they were doing it, since they weren't being paid to be listed. I had to dig in deeper. So I started to look at the way things worked on Bitmart, because it was a little bit different. See, Bitmart artificially implemented tokenomics the way SafeMoon always had, with a 10% tax. However, the way Bitmart did it was slightly different. Normally, 5% of each transaction would go directly to the liquidity pool, but Bitmart did it slightly differently. Quote, 5% will be returned to the developers to be added back to the liquidity pool for SafeMoon tokens. So instead of sending the fees directly to the LP, they sent it to SafeMoon's developers to do it. But go with me here. What if the money never made it there? What if Bitmart sent those fees to SafeMoon to put in the LP and they just kept it? That would be pretty damning, wouldn't it? But the question is, how do we find out for sure if this theory is correct? And this is when I realized I needed Caroni's wallets to figure out if he was getting large payments from Bitmart and what he was doing with them. Because bear in mind, Caroni was not a rich man before SafeMoon. So if he's getting millions of dollars from Bitmart, we know why. The problem is, Caroni was the most clever of all of these guys at hiding his wallets. Caroni is like a ghost. I didn't have anything on him. So to figure this out, I knew I'd have to dig deeper than I ever had before. I started by trying to talk to people who had worked for SafeMoon. I knew one of them would have seen Caroni's wallets, right? Or have been paid by it, and I just kind of had to convince them to tell me what it was. Now, obviously, most of the people I talked to said, well, I can't talk. Maybe they felt threatened, or they felt like they were under NDA, or they just didn't want to be part of a piece. Fair enough. But eventually, I found the right person. He said, quote, there's a lot of information surrounding SafeMoon. Yes, I do have an NDA regarding internal things, but a lot of things I've witnessed aren't covered under that. Now, this person asked to remain anonymous for obvious reasons, because they felt threatened before by some of the members of SafeMoon, and they wished to not repeat that chapter of their lives. But when I got on the phone with this person, they were a goldmine. They had direct links to several of the team members and provided two really important wallets in particular. The most notable were a Kyle wallet, who's the creator of SafeMoon, and John Caroni's secret wallet that they had both been hiding, and they tell us a lot. We're going to start with John Caroni's alleged wallet, which is this. The first thing we find is that he was receiving massive payments of Tether, totaling up to $15 million. And where did these payments come from? From Bitmart. He also had $4 million in SafeMoon. And this would all seem to confirm the theory that the fees from Bitmart that were supposed to go to the LP may have been used by Caroni. After all, he said the Bitmart deal would put them in a new tax bracket. But in addition to that, I also saw something else, which is millions of dollars flowing from Caroni's wallet to a familiar address. Not the liquidity pool, but Kyle, the creator of SafeMoon, the one we had been told had been paid off by Caroni. And this all corroborates the information that the Ginger gave me earlier.
I believe he got a payoff and went away because it just disappeared. He never said a word to us about what happened.
Not that this case is fully settled. We still have many questions, like what exactly was this $3 million payment to Kyle for? Where did the rest of the money from Bitmart go? I reached out to John Caroni about this, regarding this investigation, for over a month to see if he had any way of explaining these problems. He declined to comment. In my opinion, it may just be that there is no good explanation for this, and Caroni just wants to stay quiet. But the question is, where does that leave us? The story of SafeMoon may not be over, but the winners and losers are basically decided. The winners are Kyle, Papa, and Caroni, who all made millions of dollars off this thing. Not to mention the several SafeMoon insiders who we didn't even have time to talk about today. They also got a cut, and the influencers, they also got a cut. Basically everyone except for the real believers in SafeMoon won. The real losers were the people who held on to hope, held on to the belief that maybe if they just trusted this new fancy crypto thing, they could escape their dead-end job. Maybe they felt stepped on by the system like Kyle used to feel. Only for them, this time they were just stepped on again, just in a new way, in a new system created not by governments or laws, but by unregulated financial markets. The only real hope for justice here is that regulators do what they've been failing to do for so long in the crypto space, which is protect consumers from fraud. And ultimately, I do believe that's what's happened here. Fraud. I think you can get lost in semantics, in the stupidity smokescreen that SafeMoon kicks up. You know, you can get lost talking about the Gambian wind farms, but ultimately the real story is that SafeMoon said the funds were automatically locked up, your money is safe, and it wasn't. They took the money at the expense of the investors, and that's the story.
Nope, it's not enough.
Oh, come on. Look at all the evidence.
I'm telling you, Coffee, evidence does not matter. You're exposing things people don't want exposed.
Yeah, maybe. Either way, I'm just kind of glad it's all over.
Well, now that that's over, let's give the people what they really want. I just got a hot lead on Will Smith.
Wait, hold that thought, Maxwell. I just got a text from Papa. He wants to talk.
Oh, brother, you can't be serious. You're not really considering this, are you?
Of course I am. He could be the final piece to all of this.
No, he's not. I'm telling you, they don't want to know.
Well, I do, and I'm taking this call.
Next time on CoffeeZilla.
This feels like fraud. This is fraud. I mean, how could it not be? You guys are millionaires, your investors are down 90%, and you guys are millionaires directly from a representation that was false. Do you feel bad for all the SafeMoon investors have watched this coin that they loved like plummet 90%?
Yeah, I do.
As you should, by the way. Did you ever suspect Caroni of fraud?
Yes. No, I didn't. I never got a payout that big. Never. I'm sure we'll see this on Netflix someday.